is Mystery Man broadcasting live from the Dark Sewer Network. Greetings, sewer chatters. You beautiful degenerates huddled in your dimly lit dens and forgotten tunnels. Tonight we gather once more for another forbidden tale straight from the Cryptid files. You know the drill. Phones off, minds open, and no snitching to the surface world. You're about to experience the full uncut fury of Bigfoot Assault. A story so wild it makes the woods themselves tremble. So lean in close, friends, and let the darkness swallow you whole as the legend begins.
Deep in the misty Pacific Northwest forests, where sunlight barely pierced the canopy, Bigfoot trudged along his ancient trails. The massive fur-covered beast had spent the day foraging for roots and berries when his enormous foot stubbed against something slick and colorful, half buried in the leaves. It was a discarded porno magazine, left behind by a group of perverts who had snuck into the woods for a sleazy rendezvous the night before. Bigfoot's bushy brows furrowed in curiosity as he picked it up, flipping through the glossy pages with surprisingly gentle paws. The images stirred something unfamiliar in his primal soul, a mix of confusion and intrigue he had never known among the trees.
As Bigfoot settled against a mossy log and continued turning the pages, a loose insert fluttered out. It was a bright coupon for a luxury cruise departing from Seattle, half off, all-inclusive, with promises of endless buffets and ocean views. The hairy giant squinted at the fine print, his mind racing with possibilities. The magazine had shown him a world of strange pleasures, and this ticket seemed like an invitation to more. Why not? For once he could leave the wild behind and sample the civilized life. With a grunt of determination, Bigfoot stuffed the coupon into his fur and began the long trek toward the city docks, visions of adventure dancing in his head.
Boarding the cruise ship proved easier than expected for the 8-foot Cryptid. Under cover of night, Bigfoot slipped past distracted security by posing as an oversized mascot in a borrowed coat, his massive frame hidden among luggage carts. The ship pulled away from the harbor at dawn, and Bigfoot found himself surrounded by excited passengers, snapping selfies and ordering cocktails. At first, the novelty thrilled him. The endless food, the glittering lights, the vast sea stretching forever. He roamed the decks, sampling shrimp and pretending to enjoy the on-board entertainment, feeling almost part of the human world for the first time.
But as the days passed, Bigfoot began noticing something that gnawed at his wild instincts. Everywhere he looked, passengers were glued to their phones, obsessively scanning QR codes for digital menus instead of simply enjoying the fresh ocean air. They abandoned hearty meals for trendy kale smoothies and lab-grown snacks, trading real conversation for likes and shares while discarding half-eaten plates and wasteful heaps. It was the changing consumer habits, shallow, synthetic, and disconnected from nature, that slowly built a fire in his chest. This wasn't living. It was consumption for consumption's sake, and it offended every fiber of his ancient being.
The rage hit Bigfoot like a thunderclap during the midnight buffet. He roared, flipping an entire dessert table onto a crowd of influencers filming their vegan parfait haul. In a creative frenzy, he grabbed 2 arguing couples and used them as human shuffleboard pucks, sliding them across the polished deck straight into the pool with perfect comedic splashes. Laughter turned to screams as he improvised further, stuffing a complaining sommelier into an oversized wine barrel and rolling it down the stairs like a runaway log, bowling over a dozen more passengers in hilarious domino fashion. The chaos was just beginning.
Fooled by primal fury, Bigfoot rampaged through the spa deck next. He creatively assaulted a yoga class by swinging their instructor like a hairy wrecking ball, sending downward dog enthusiasts flying into hot tubs with synchronized yelps. In the casino, he turned slot machines into improvised catapults, launching screaming gamblers across the room in glittering arcs of coins and chips. One particularly inventive takedown involved the captain's hat. Bigfoot jammed it on a fleeing waiter and used the man's own serving tray as a boomerang to knock out an entire bachelorette party mid-selfie. The ship echoed with his thunderous laughs and their
No corner of the vessel escaped his hilarious wrath. In the theater during a magic show, Bigfoot transformed the disappearing act into reality by hurling the magician and his assistants into the orchestra pit, using the curtain rods as giant pool noodles. He chased a group of retirees through the promenade, creatively herding them into a conga line of doom that ended with all of them tumbling overboard in a perfectly timed wave. Creative weapon after creative weapon, pool noodles, deck chairs, even a flaming fondue fountain, he wielded them all until the once luxurious cruise liner fell eerily silent. Not a single soul remained standing.
The government and mainstream news outlets moved swiftly to contain the horror. Within hours, official statements flooded the airwaves, blaming the entire incident on a sudden hantavirus outbreak from contaminated ship rats. Experts in crisp suits appeared on every channel, gravely warning of airborne transmission and the need for immediate global precautions. No mention of the massive fur-covered assailant or the creative carnage. The narrative was locked tight. Families of the victims received vague condolences while footage of the ship was quietly scrubbed, replaced by stock images of medical tents and hazmat teams swarming the docks.
The cover-up triggered panic worldwide, plunging nations back into full lockdown, just as economies had begun to breathe. Travel bans slammed shut, businesses shuttered again, and citizens were ordered indoors under the guise of public safety. Mask mandates returned with a vengeance, and curfews enforced the isolation. The public, exhausted yet compliant, accepted the hantavirus story without question, their fear expertly stoked by round-the-clock coverage. Meanwhile, shadowy figures in high places exchanged knowing glances, pleased that the real truth of Bigfoot's rampage would never see the light of day.
Big Pharma wasted no time capitalizing on the manufactured crisis, rolling out experimental vaccines at warp speed. With government contracts worth billions, billboards and ads promised protection from the hantavirus variant, but the shots carried hidden side effects. Turbo cancer rates skyrocketed among the newly injected, silently lowering the global population, just as certain billionaires had long fantasized in their most private wet dreams. Bigfoot, meanwhile, slipped away unnoticed in a stolen lifeboat under cover of the final night's darkness. He paddled back to the misty shores of his beloved forest, the chaos of the cruise already fading like a bad dream. Tucked under one massive arm was a case of premium rum he had liberated from the ship's bar during his rampage, smooth, aged, and tasting of sweet revenge. Back in his secluded cave, he cracked open the first bottle, the fiery liquid warming his belly as he gazed at the stars through the treetops. For the first time in ages, the wild felt right again. And so, dear sewer chatters, the moral of Bigfoot Assault rings clear through the darkness. Never let the shallow traps of modern consumer culture and government greed strip away your wild, authentic self, or you might just awaken the primal fury that lurks in all of us. Because those who profit from fear and control will always spin the truth to suit their agenda. This has been Mystery Man for the Dark Sewer Network. Good night, Sewer Chatters. Stay hidden, stay savage, and thanks for joining us. We couldn't do it without the Dark Sewer Network and our special patron, Nick the Rat. Sleep tight in the shadows.